Okay. Sorry about that. Are you ready? You got the mic on you? Okay. All right, fine.
Yes, hi.
I wanted to ask you about what's occurring sort of in the context of your thesis on the shock doctrine.
Yeah.
And it seems like since the economic crisis of 2008, there's just been this series of aftershocks rippling through country after country.
Yeah.
Do you find that that's going to be the new norm for a globalized economy that we're in right now?
Well, we already had a very crisis-prone economy. We've had the Asian financial crisis / contagion. We've seen multiple shocks to the global economy. Really, since globalization, financial globalization began, and it was so easy for speculators to yank their money in and out. But I think the 2008 financial crisis is different, and I think people sense that there isn't, that it wasn't just a bump along the road, that this is a new normal. And my fear at the peak of the financial crisis, when those trillions of dollars were moving from the public coffers to private hands, was that this bailout was going to translate into a public sector crisis. Not only because of how much money was being given to the banks, but also because of the way in which the bailout was administered, because homeowners weren't bailed out, because workers weren't bailed out, because no conditions were placed on that huge transfer of wealth that would have created a different kind of economy, that would have really rebuilt the real economy. So once those decisions were made, it was virtually a guarantee that the bill for the crisis created on Wall Street would be handed down to regular people, and the most vulnerable among them first. And that's what's been happening steadily, and it's just gotten so bad that people are fed up enough to take to the streets, to return to the scene of the crime, and also to challenge the claim that we're broke. You know, we have this discourse of scarcity in this country, and in so many countries in the world, where it's all just about how much we don't have. We don't have enough money to pay for health care, for education. There's not enough money to treat immigrants decently, to grant people citizenship. It's this whole discourse of scarcity. So, you know, people have come here to the citadel of abundance to put the lie to that claim, because there is so much wealth here. So it is not an economic crisis. It isn't. It is a distribution crisis, and that's the significance of this.
And when you talk about, I know another part of the doctrine was this use of this third part of repression. When you see what's happening here and in other parts of the world, do you believe that third part is really just in the beginning of being implemented? And what does the public need to be, who wants to protest, what do they need to be aware of?
Yeah, well, the thesis is that when we look at how this economic model has been implemented around the world, is often accompanied by three forms of shock. One is the shock of the crisis that readies the ground. The second is the economic shock therapy, which is the medicine that societies in crisis are told they have to swallow. And the third is the shock of repression, when people resist those measures. And there is a great deal of repression in this country. I mean, I find it astonishing that here we are protesting against deregulated capitalism, the Wild West that goes on in the buildings that surround us with absolutely no rules, and the push from their lobbyists right now in Washington is to get rid of what few remaining regulations there are so that they can create more jobs, as if anybody believes that. And then here we are in this space, and we are so confined, so restricted in our movements. We can't even amplify our voices because the restrictions on citizenship, on freedom of speech, on freedom to congregate are so limited in this country. And it really is a difference from other countries where there's just a lot more oxygen, a lot more ability to have spontaneous gatherings and to use public spaces. I mean, this city has been so corporatized, so I think a lot of the shocks are already they're coming. They obviously can get a lot worse, and that's why I think it's been so remarkable the way in which this city has responded to the police repression. It's really important that the protesters have been so committedly nonviolent, because that has put all the attention on the police, right? And it's really clear. And this is the first protest that I remember where that's been the case, right? right? It isn't cops versus protesters. It's police beating up on protesters, and that is the story. I mean, look, there's been terrible media coverage, as we know, but that part of it's actually been pretty good. And that's because of the incredible discipline with which people have behaved here. And what's been amazing is that people have seen those videos, and instead of being afraid, they've just come out in greater numbers. And there is strength in numbers. This is the truth. Yes, the shocks will come, that third shock of repression. But it's a lot harder to do the more of us there are. And the less you're able to marginalize and dismiss the people who are protesting. That's why coalition building is so important. And even, the fact that so many celebrities have been coming down here, like Mark Ruffalo and other people who you wouldn't expect have come here. That really matters too. And I think more celebrities should come down here. They should use their celebrity to protect the people here, because that actually sends a message that the police get. If they come down here, it's harder to clear this plaza out. So I don't know if you have a lot of celebrity listeners. You never know, but come on down.
Mostly leftists. And then lastly, I just want to know, what do you think is the most important vital step that can come out of what is happening here? What's the most, or if there's a few steps? You talked about this new public economy, this new economy that we need. What do we see is the most important thing that can come out of these actions?
Naomi Klein,
I think we're talking about building another kind of economy, fundamentally. It isn't just an economic crisis. We're also facing a deep, deep ecological crisis. And that ecological crisis has us on a deadline. I mean, we need to get off fossil fuels in a big way by the end of the decade. So we're talking about profound shifts. I think we need to be moving away from a growth-based economy. So we're talking about really, really fundamental stuff. And that's why I don't buy the idea that the protesters should have a media-friendly list of demands about bank regulations, because this is this movement doesn't know what it can demand yet. If it is big enough, it can make big demands. So why not wait and find out how powerful you can become before restricting yourself to reformist demands?
Do you think speakers?
I got to run and give a speech.
Okay, thank you.
Hi.
One question: is it safe to assume those demands will be progressive?
I actually have to give a speech now.
Okay.
And we'll
Yeah,
have a
go ahead.
discussion after.